let's go into Joseph. Genesis chapter 37. And Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock when his brethren and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. So Joseph he was low key telling, he was a tattletale on his brothers. He's like, hey, they ain't working hard enough to pop. Verse 3. Now Israel, he loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably about him. So Jacob showed some favoritism. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and it was told it to his brethren. They hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I dreamed. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood around about and made obeisance to my sheaf. I'm sorry, obeisance to my sheaf. They basically bowed down to his sheaf. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? They hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream and told it to his brother and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him and said unto him, What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? So they already knew that the sun and the moon and the stars represented Israel and his sons. That's what we read that in Revelation chapter 12. Uh, verse 37. I'm sorry, verse 11. And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the same. Remember, we talked about how envy, when you are overwhelmed with that spirit of envy, it makes you do things that you normally wouldn't do. It makes you, just think crazy things like Saul and David. Saul envied David, and he ended up wanting to kill him. But his mind was twisted. That's what envy can do. Like same with Cain and Abel. When you envy someone, it makes you do things that you wouldn't even think about doing. That's why we always have to check that spirit if we have envy in our hearts. And that's a daily thing. And his brethren went to feed their father's flocks in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, Here am I. And he said to him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out to the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him. And behold, he was wandering in the field, and the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, They are departed hence. For I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren and found them in Dothan. Now the plot to kid against Joseph. 18. When they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. Those brothers trying to kill him because they had that envy. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer comes. Come now, therefore, let us slay him and cast him into some pit, and we will say some evil beast has devoured him. And we shall see what will become of his dreams. Man. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid out of their hands to deliver him to his father again. So Reuben, he had a plot, to like, he's like, all right, how about we just do this, make him feel bad, we'll throw him in the pit. But, he was really just doing that so he could save him later. Verse 23, and it came to pass when Joseph was come unto his brethren, they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. They took him and cast him in the pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother in our flesh, and his brethren were content. Man, Judah, man, he trifling, bro. Hey, what it say in Jeremiah chapter 3? It said Judah is treacherous. Hey man, you gotta watch out for them Judah brothers, man. They set you up, man. For real. Oh man. Then there were passed by Midianites, merchantmen. They drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. Man, Joseph and Christ, they have very similar. He got sold out for, a few pieces of silver. When Judas sold him out, now his brothers sold Joseph out for 20 pieces of silver. Man, that's crazy. That money, man. Verse 29, Reuben returned to the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes, he tore his clothes, and he returned unto his brother and said, the child is not, and I, whither shall I go? So he said, where's the child? What happened to him? And they took Joseph's coat and killed a kid. They killed a kid of the goats and dipped the coat in blood. And they sent the coat in many colors. They brought it to their father and said, they have that, this have we found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. So how they gonna do that? They killed the goat, dipped it in blood, and they said, this is all we found. Is this your son's coat or not? And he said, he knew it and said, it is my son's coat. An evil beast has devoured him. Joseph is without double rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, for I will go down in the grave until my son morning. Thus his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt, into Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard. Dang, man, this Joseph, 17 years old, just got sold into slavery by his brothers. His brothers, yo. Man, that's wild. All right, let's keep going. Let's go to chapter 39. All right. Joseph's success in Egypt. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And the Most High was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man. He was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Most High was with him, and that the Most High made all that he did to prosper in his hand. So even when we're in a bad situation, we gotta always remember the Most High is with us. We always just gotta keep doing the right thing, and do what the Most High requires of us, no matter what situation that we in. We have to adjust and adapt to our environment, but we always have to keep the Most High first wherever we go, and that's what Joseph was doing. He kept a positive attitude even when he was in slavery, and I mean positive where he kept his faith. Verse 4, and Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house and all that he had put into his hands. So even Joseph, he's in slavery, but Potiphar saw how successful he is. He's like, man, he's like, the Most High is with him. He has favor on him. I could tell that he's special. Let me actually put him in charge of many things over my house. In verse 5, and it came to pass from that time he had made him overseer in his house and over that he had, that the Most High blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake, and the blessing of the Most High was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. So Joseph was in control of everything. Everything was under Joseph's hand except the food that Potiphar ate. Everything was under Joseph's control. Verse 7. It came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, lie with me. So this is a married woman trying to sleep with Joseph. And he refused. He said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house. He has committed all that he has to my hand. So he said, the master trusts me. Verse 9, there is none greater in this house than I, neither has he kept back anything from me but you, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? Because Joseph, he, even though there is no Mosaic law yet, Jacob was already, he knew what the Most High required. There was already a requirement that the Most High was teaching Abraham and Isaac and Jacob was teaching his sons the things that the Most High required, even though it wasn't written down in the whole Mosaic law, which is a whole um, deeper level of infraction against the Most High. But this was just a kind of a simple, basics of what the Most High requires. And one thing was adultery. So Joseph knew that this was a sin against God if he slept with a married woman. So he was like, I can't do that. That's why he said, I'm a sin against God. He didn't just say about Potiphar because he knew what, no, he knew it was wrong. Yeah, because he was taught. In verse 10, and it came to pass that she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or to be with her. So he was keeping his distance. He's like, man, I can't, man, I ain't gonna mess this up. I got it, it's like I'm actually doing pretty well here, in spite of my situation. I can't make it worse. Verse 11, it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house here within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. And got him out. He ran out. He's like, man, I'm out of here. Boom, zoom. He was boom. He's out fast. And it came to pass when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of her house and spake unto them, saying, see, he has brought in a Hebrew. He's brought in a Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came in onto me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. And it came to pass when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled and got him out. Man, this is the same thing that got Emmett Till killed, bro. That's that. The scriptures, man, they keep it real, man. So that's what I say. You gotta be careful, man, who you believe, man. This movement about believe all women, that goes back to Emmett Till, man. It go back to Joseph. It's like some women, man, they just have it in their heart to try to set up a brother, man. That's why you gotta protect yourself at all times, man. For real. And she laid up his garment by her until his Lord came home. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, the Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came in unto me to mock me. And it came to pass as I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment with me and fled out. So she just straight up lying on this man. And it came to pass when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, after this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him in the prison, a place where king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in prison. So you could tell that even though that the master Potiphar was upset, there was some type of hesitation, because if he was really that upset, he would have killed Joseph. But there was a reason why he put him in prison. That because I think he thought, there's something about Joseph that it doesn't seem to add up. This man has been, so successful in my home and doing all this stuff. He's like, why would he try to do something like this? Like knowing that I have power over him like that. He's like, that don't even make sense. So that's my thought of it. I think he has some suspicion about his own wife. He's like, I don't know if she's telling all the truth, because if he really believed his wife, he would have killed him. He wouldn't just put him in prison. But that's just the mercy that the Most High gave Joseph. So, verse 21, the Most High was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. And the keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Most High was with him, that which he did, and the Most High made it to prosper. So again, even in this situation, Joseph was, initially sold into slavery. He was successful there. Now he's in prison, and he's successful in prison. So he's always has this, this presence of the Most High on him, which makes him, just very special. That's why I say, the Most High has given us the gift of knowing Him, and He has made us all have some special trait about us. So we always have to remember that when we in these certain situations that the Most High is He's always with us. So it's no matter what situation that we're in, we always have that gift that we get to know him. We get to consult with him and get to talk with him, and he's always just there to help us get through, protect us, and he just always really, if we keep doing what we're doing, it makes us prosper in things that people are just they're amazed that they're like so other people would have gave up. Some people would have gave their life. They would have died. They would have committed suicide. But Joseph was, he was still able to just thrive, not just survive. He was able to thrive even in these, bad situations because he had faith. Remember, Joseph had that dream, right? So that was always in the back of his mind. He's like, I'm meant to do something special in this world, and he kept that faith that eventually it was going to come to pass. So verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against these two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in the ward of the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them. And he served them, and they continued a season in ward. So these, the cupbearer and the baker, they're both, or is a cupbearer or what they call butler. They're and the baker. They're both in prison because they made the Pharaoh upset. All right. So verse 5. And they dreamed the dream, both of them, each man his dream, and one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning and looked upon them, and both they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers what were with him in the ward, that were with him in the ward of his Lord's house, saying, wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, we have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray thee. So Joseph, he had that perspective. He's like, wisdom comes from the Most High. So it's like, y'all want understanding, we got to go to him first. So, tell me what's your dream so I can, we can pray about it and see what's going on. Verse 9. The chief butler told his dream to Joseph and said to him, in my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and the vine were three branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. I took the grapes and pressed them in Pharaoh's cup. I gave the cup unto Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, this is the interpretation of it. The three branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, after the former manner when thou was his butler or his cupbearer. And but think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. So he's like, when you get restored back to your position, remember me. Put a good word in for me. Get me out of this prison, please. These are verse 14, 15. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. When the chief baker saw that interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, he's like, me too. I got a dream. Let me show you. I had 3 white baskets on my head. In the uppermost basket, there was all manner of baked meats or like different type of bakery goods for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, this is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. Oh my goodness. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, the birthday. As I said, man, when the scriptures mention somebody's birthday, usually not good. Remember when Herod had his birthday, John the Baptist got killed, and when Pharaoh got his birthday, now this dude about to get killed. The scriptures don't really mention anything really good of someone's birthday. That's just something. But like I said, I think it's something, it's the spirit that comes on people's birthday. I really do. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants. He lifted up the head of the chief butler and the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, or the cupbearer, and gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to him. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him. So Man, Joseph already he interpreted the dreams. He already prophesied what was about to happen. And then the cupbearer, he got his position and he forgot about Joseph. So Joseph's still in prison. So I can imagine Joseph's like, man, like, bro, like man, like you could at least put in a good word. You could have been like, hey, man, it's a Hebrew slave. He in down there. He interpreted dreams. He a pretty cool guy. You should let him out. He's saying nothing. He's like, oh, I guess I'm free. All right, peace. It's a cold world, man. All right, let's keep going. Verse chapter 41. And it came to pass at the end of this 2 full years. So Joseph was in jail for 2 years. That's crazy. That Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat flesh. They fed in the meadow, and behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean flesh, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. These are like cows or bulls when they say kine. So there's like 7 ripe big cows or bulls, and there are 7 malnourished cows or bulls. All right, and the ill-favored lean flesh kind, they did eat of the 7 well-favored fat kind. So Pharaoh awoke. So he's like, "What the heck?" He said, "Why did these malnourished bulls just eat the big fat ones? What's going on?" And he slept and dreamed the second time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. So there was, 7 ripe, good corn, and then there were 7 malnourished corn. And the 7 thin ears devoured in 7 rank and full ears. So these 7 thin malnourished corns ate the 7 good corn, just like the 7 ill malnourished cows or kine ate the good cows. So Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. In verse 8, it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled. He sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them this dream. There was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler, the cupbearer, unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. And Pharaoh was wroth with his servants and put me in a ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed the dream in one night, and I and he, we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there with us a young man, a Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard. And we told him, he interpret to us our dreams, to each man according to his dream. He did interpret. And it came to pass as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored into my office, and him who was hanged. So now he remembered Joseph. So now let's get Joseph back. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph. They brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came into Pharaoh. You could imagine he's been in jail for 2 years. You wonder how long his beard was? He probably looked like a bushman or something like that. Verse 15. Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have a dream. I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret. I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. So even at this time, Joseph still kept his faith. I want to just emphasize that Joseph never, he never lost faith. I'm sure he had doubts, but he still gave the credit to who credit was due. And that's why he was favored by the Most High. He just always kept his faith, at the forefront. He didn't, say like, yeah, I have the ability. He didn't make a deal with Pharaoh saying like, if I do this, you do this. No, he said like, if you have, if you want an answer, the Most High will give you an answer. So, that's how he kept his faith. But verse 17, Pharaoh said unto Joseph, in my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there came up of the river 7 kine, fat flesh, and well favored, and they fed in the meadow, and behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill favored, and lean flesh, such as I never saw in the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and the ill favored kine did eat the first 7 fat kine. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill favored, as at the beginning. So I awoke, and I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk full and good. And behold, the 7 ears withered then, and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto the magicians, and there was none that could declare it to me. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream is one. God has showed Pharaoh what he's about to do. The 7 good kind are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. The 7 thin and ill-favored kind that came up after thee are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears that blasted from the wind, east wind, shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing that I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showed unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. All the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and a famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of famine of following. The land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be grievous. So he's saying it's going to be so bad. It's going to be, we all have a prosperous 7 years, but the next 7 years are going to be so bad that it's going to be like you never even had those years. So verse 32, so he said, for the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will surely bring it to pass. So he's like, gave him 2 dreams to make sure he knew that he was serious. Verse 33, and therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise and set him over the land of Egypt. And let Pharaoh do this and let him appoint officers over the land and take up the 5th part of the land in Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. Let them gather all the food of those good years that come and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh. Let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for a store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, when the land perish not through the famine. So Joseph already had a plan. He said, so these 7 years are going to be so prosperous. Let's do this. Let's set up for every year, we'll just take a fifth of everything that we gain and we'll put it in a bank, like a food bank. So we'll just take a fifth of all the crops that we get because it's going to be so prosperous. We're going to have so much extra. So instead of just using it, we'll just save it, save it, a fifth every year. And then so we can survive the next 7 years. And the thing was good unto the eyes of the Pharaoh and the eyes of his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God has showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. So Joseph, man, with his wisdom, that's what it's like, I think it's Ecclesiastes. It says, or I think it's read the Proverbs Ecclesiastes where it's like a man with wisdom can exceed, he can save a city, he can basically exceed the ranks just by his wisdom alone. He comes from a poor family, he comes from a poor background, but his wisdom, his insight is able to make him be more established as a person and be recognized by a king, something like Pharaoh. So it's beautiful. Verse 40, thou shalt be over my house according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen and put a gold chain about his neck. Man, he was dripping. He was flossing out there. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. They cried before him, bowed the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. So this man who just came out of prison is now the leader of Egypt. Wow. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. So they think this is actually the same person he worked for, who the wife accused him of sexual assault. So how irony, how ironic. Now he is going to marry the daughter who may be the wife of the woman that accused him of trying to do something with him. That's crazy how that turns around, right? And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. I just want to stop right there, pause, because, remember Joseph was 17 when he had those dreams, and now he's 30 years old. So that was a span of 13 years, when he got sold into slavery and to the point where he gets exalted in Egypt. So, sometimes the vision, is sometimes that sometimes Most High puts us something in our spirit that we know we're supposed to do, or we have the ability to do, the potential to do, but for some reason things aren't seem to be working as you want it to be. Sometimes the timing just doesn't seem to be right. But sometimes it has to be a certain period of time for the Most High to cultivate these skills and to cultivate our mentality, our personality, sometimes even the humility to really get into a place where we can really be the most successful at it. So it's like Joseph had to go through a lot of things in order to be prepared for this position that he was going to be in. He's literally the king of Egypt. So he went through a strong period of isolation, long period of isolation, a long period of just kind of figuring things out, under praying, trying to trust in the Most High, and then he got this as his reward. So we have to show that sense of perseverance, that sense of endurance, like Job, like Joseph. You know, we have to have those same type of ability, so the Most High can really, put us in that position where we believe in our heart that we're supposed to be. And it's whatever his will is for our life. Sometimes that might be, something a smaller scale, might be to be a husband, might be to be a wife, might be to work at a certain position, to own a certain business, to lead a group of men, be a motivational speaker, be a coach, whatever it is, that might be what you're called to do. But you have to go to a process similar to Joseph, where you have to kind of be isolated and kind of figure out, what am I supposed to be doing before I actually get that position that is in my heart to do. So I just like that, go that story because I think it's very important that we do that. One more thing. One more thing. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's go to Genesis because eventually Joseph's brothers, they do come back in the picture. They go to Egypt and they find out Joseph is king. Um, but let's see what happens. Um, so this is when Joseph's brothers, they come back and they ask for forgiveness. So they said, "So shall you say unto Joseph, Forgive, I pray thee now, the trespass of thy brethren and their sin, for they did unto thee evil. And now we pray thee, forgive the trespasses of the servants of God of thy father." And Joseph wept when they spake unto him. And his brethren also went and fell down upon his face, and they said, Behold, we be thy servants. And Joseph said unto them, Fear not, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, you thought evil against me, but God meant it but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people alive. Another version will say, You meant evil against me, but the Most High meant it for good, and to save people, to keep people alive. So sometimes we have to change our perspective, that sometimes we may see, man, these people, they really meant to hurt me. They really were people I trusted. They were people. Oh, yeah. So I was saying, Genesis 50, verse 20, when Joseph, he confronts his brothers in verse 19, first, and said, Joseph said unto him, Fear not, for I am in the place of God. Because his brothers, they were like, oh man, since our Jacob, our father, died, he's going to, you know, punish us for the sin that we did unto him. But verse 20, it says, But as for you, you thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass as this day, to save much people alive. So it's like, he's saying that, you know, it's like you thought you did something to hurt me, but the Most High meant it for good and to save much people. And we have to sometimes have that perspective in regards to certain people that may have hurt us. We may have had hurt from our family, or from our previous church or congregation or friends. We say, man, like, you really hurt me, like you meant to hurt me. But we understand that now that we're older, we have a perspective. It's like, man, if I didn't go through that, through that pain that hurt this person, who cheated on me, or this person that left me when I was going through a hard time, it got me motivated to get my life together, or it really focused me on really figuring out what's important. It really got my relationship with the Most High more serious. If I and I, because if I wouldn't been hurt, I probably wouldn't have had the motivation to really go into the gym. I wouldn't have that motivation to read these books, to write this book, to really focus on my craft, really focus on my, my goals, really write my goals out. So sometimes it's a blessing that the Most High allows these people, to really influence us, and to help us and to galvanize us to be, to do what we're supposed to do. Like Psalm 17 sometimes said, the Most High uses evil people to rechasten us and to really sharpen us, to really improve us for the times that we need later down in the road. So Joseph had that perspective. He's like, y'all meant good, y'all meant evil against me, but the Most High used it for good. So we have to have that perspective sometimes in regards to the things that happen to our lives. So yeah, that's all I got. Hopefully somebody got some out of it. Peace.